Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Demon Bluff. And today, or actually, like yesterday, I posted. Oh, why does the game sound so much louder? What the heck? I don't know why it sounds so loud, but I'm gonna turn it down. My bad. But yesterday, I posted a tier list essentially explaining, like, oh, this is some of like the useful characters and stuff. Like essentially like what I thought was like very useful and not very useful in the game. Like for the villagers, I ranked them based on like, oh, how useful are they to actually helping the village? And minions, it's obviously how useful are they to helping the evil team. And then for the outcasts, I ranked them on based on like if the outcast is gonna be like helping the town, I ranked them on like, are they helping the town good? Are they helping the evils good? And all that. And today I wanted to just kind of like explain some of those rankings because I have a feeling that like as that post gets more views and stuff, people are gonna start to question like, hey, why did I rank the confessor and knight at the very bottom? And like some of the characters at the very top. But alright, so we're gonna start off with Bishop here. Because Bishop I put at very useful. Because Bishop is, I would have to say, one of the S tier characters. Because in assuming that they are not corrupted, they are telling you one villager, so they can confirm one villager. They can confirm that there's one outcast, and it's very easy to figure out if they're right or not. If they're pointing at like a bombardier or something, which can then and then if they're pointing at one evil, you can essentially find one of each faction just easily. It's like it is a very easy thing. Like I don't know how to like really explain it outside of like you like let's say you're in a scenario where you have a jester and judge and you're not and you know that the jester is telling the truth. If the bishop is pointing at the jester and a doppelganger, you know that the judge has to be evil. Yep. And we're gonna go to the doppelganger next because they're the next one at the top. The doppelganger is always tells the truth, so and they always become a copy of a villager that is in play. So if you ever see two of the same villager, either it's evil or the doppelganger, but if you know that there's a doppelganger, you know that one of them is always telling the truth. And I put them at very useful because it's like in some villages you just have like so many evils that it's very hard to get information. The doppelganger is the character where if you see that they're telling the truth, you know that there's a copy of that there's a real version of the character also. Like the doppelganger is let's just say baker. You would see two characters saying I'm the original baker, which then confirms there's two bakers. And phone turned off because I'm looking at the tier list on my phone. Next up is the druid. The druid is a learn one random outcast. It is very useful if you're trying to figure out if one character is the drunk lycanthrope or lycanthrope if it's day one and everything. But sometimes it can be very useful and easy to figure out if it's like, oh, since there's like a rambler here, you can figure out if the rambler is a minion disguised as the rambler, which then means if people are telling it to be quiet, the those are either lying or evil, which could be very, well, obviously just very useful and everything. The gem crafter it's the most simple role, but it is very just like it essentially tells you that one character is good to just confirm them. And if they're lying, it's just like, oh, you're telling them that it's like, oh, if they're evil, they're telling you essentially who another evil is. Like, I didn't rank them based on that, but the ability to just learn one character is good is a very useful thing in a game where you're trying to figure out who an evil is in a village of maybe up to like 10 or 11 people. Alright. Next up is the medium. The medium is essentially just the upgraded version of the gem crafter. Because instead of just learning that one character is good, you're also learning their role. And they're essentially the same character, but the medium is just a better version of the gem crafter. And Slayer? Slayer is a character where if he's good, he essentially gives you one free kill. And if he gets the kill, he confirms himself. If he doesn't, then it's like, oh, that person's not evil. And they might just be like a corrupted villager instead. Alright. Going over to the next one, we got Plague Doctor. Plague Doctor, they are trying to essentially, like, they are, I have them as like neutral evil on my tier list when I was like giving them Town of Salem roles, but honestly, I feel like they just play for both sides, which makes it really hard to essentially determine, hey, which side do I rank them on in usefulness? But the reason why I put them into very useful is the Plague Doctor corrupts one good villager, and their ability gives you the ability to check if a character is corrupted and learn an evil if you're right. Which honestly it's essentially similar to the what's it called? The gem crafter. Similar to the gem crafter, but instead it's telling you that someone's evil. And it's also similar to the poisoner. And I was debating on if they go into very useful or useful most of the time. But I eventually decided, you know what, it's gonna be very useful, since it tells you which character is an evil. Alright, and now we're going over to the demons here. Lilith is very useful to the demons or the evil team, because she is killing villagers every 4 characters that get revealed. So, and if the village is at 10 people, you're only getting 8 information. And sometimes the characters that she kills have information where it's like that information could have easily helped you complete the village. And if not, then it's like, and then if she kills just like a few units that are just like, honestly, this game is all about information. So being able to take away information is very good for the evil team. But getting as much information as possible as the villagers or outcasts, depending on which team you're going for, which team they're helping, is very good. And the same thing goes for Puka, because her entire ability relies around corrupting villagers beside her, which essentially makes it so you're losing more information. So So like for the evil team, she's very useful, but for like if you're playing it, but if you're looking at it in a point of view of just like, oh, the villagers should be like the very useful team, you are looking at effectively your worst nightmare. Because she is a corruption specialist and corrupts both units beside her and makes it so your information is much worse. Alright, now let's move down to the next tier, useful most of the time. The character that I put into here is the Empress. The Empress is useful most of the time, but it is a situation where she just gives you too much information. Like, how do I explain that? Essentially, what it means is she gives you 3 characters, that 2 of them being good and 1 being evil. It's the equivalent of it's too much information where you can't narrow it down, and it moves her down a tier. Compared to the Gem Crafter and Medium, who give you more specific. But she can be useful if you're trying to figure out if there's like a 50-50, where it's like you have 2 characters like that you can't figure out which one is evil, and she just so happens to be pointing at one of them. The Fortune Teller they tend to be useful, but personally, I think they're mostly useful once an evil is finally dead, but at that point you're starting to solve the village. But the ability to figure out if there's an evil between 2 characters is two characters that you can select between and figure out if there's an evil. It can be good to figure out if there's a doppelganger if you're selecting 2 characters that claim the same role. And then if it's not a doppelganger, you find out that there's an evil in a double claim with one of the villagers. Alright, next up is the Judge. The Judge is useful most of the time, but it's like, it essentially helps you figure out if one character is lying, but you have to figure out if that character is lying first to know if the Judge is telling the truth. So yeah, so if you know that let's say the baker over here is saying that, oh, I was a baker, you would have to know that means the baker is actually lying, and you have to use the Judge on said baker to figure out the information and figure out if the baker is telling the truth or not. We're going over to the Poet. The Poet has the ability to essentially become the truth. Wait, what is this? I've never actually looked at the text for her. She told the Slayer, truth is a shadow. He nodded like that meant something. I've actually never looked at that quote, but that's funny. But essentially, the Poet she's useful most of the time because she becomes any unit or any villager. She can effectively she can't become the alchemist, she can become the architect, can become baker, can become the bard, bishop, can't become confessor. Wait. Oh, that's a cool Easter egg. I didn't realize that if you hover over the confessor, they become dizzy in the card selection. That's funny. But essentially, any character that gives information, she can become a copy of. I don't believe she can become ones that have like select information, like the Fortune Teller and Investigator. But effectively, she tells you information from any character. But there's some investigative characters here in the game that I honestly feel like they're too vague in their information to be able to actually do anything. I'm looking at you, Architect. Telling you which side of the town is more evil is like the equivalent of saying, oh, that side's more evil. But then it's like if you're saying both sides are more equal, you know that either the guy at the very top is evil or this guy's evil. It's a very wacky scenario. Alright, let's go to the next character. The next character I put into useful most of the time is actually the investigator. The investigator, obviously assuming that they are good, is essentially able to help you check if there is an outcast among villagers or if there is evils. The way that I personally use the investigator and think that the investigator is supposed to be played after a evil is already killed. And then using the investigator to select that dead evil and itself to figure out if it's going to claim there's a villager. Because then if they're doing that, they're evil. But the investigator, assuming that they're good, is learning that, oh, there was a demon there, and you can easily confirm them. Okay, next character is the drunk in the very not very useful most of the time. So the drunk is effectively a neutral evil, where he is lying and telling you bad information, but is super useful to the evils because effectively he's getting you to look away from the actual evils in the village. He's getting you to look over, let's say that like 5, 6, and 9 are evil here, and the drunk is just 2. He's giving you information about like, oh, 1 is evil between 1, 2, and 3, or 1, 3, and 4. You're effectively trying to figure out who's evil on this side of the map, but your evil team is on this side of the map. And he can do anything. He can become any character too. So anything he wants to be, he can just mess with you and give you bad information. Alright, we're gonna go over to the next character. And the next character is the Poisoner. The Poisoner is on the useful most of the time, because sometimes I feel like he just gets stuck in between 2 characters that can't be corrupted, and he has a character that fully counters him. So while the Poisoner has the ability to corrupt someone, you have the Alchemist who can easily cure the corruption. You have a Plague Doctor who can use that corrupted character to then instantly find the Poisoner, assuming it's just the Poisoner. You have so many characters that, and then there's the chance that the Poisoner just spawns in between 2 evils here and just can't do anything. So it's like he's useful most of the time because he's able to corrupt a villager to make it so that they seem evil instead of him. But there becomes the issue of just there's essentially 2 characters that can counter him, and there's a way where if that happens, he's just getting countered. Alright. And while we're at it, we're gonna go over to the Puppet, who has a similar problem, where if they spawn in between 2 evils, they can't actually use their ability. And Puppet effectively is like, it's like we can't talk about the Puppeteer without talking about the Puppet. But the Puppet is at the not useful most of the time. So we're gonna actually not talk about the Puppet. Debate, like, mentally debating, do I talk about the Puppet now or do I just talk about the Puppeteer? I think just to keep the format going straight, I think I'll just talk about the Puppet. But the Puppeteer is essentially just trying to it turns 1 villager into the Puppet, But if they spawn in between two evils, or an evil and an outcast, or two outcasts, or however, they don't get to make their puppet. So they're useful most of the time by being able to get another evil onto the team, but there's situations where they just can't use their ability and be useful. The Chancellor is like, how do I explain it? By being able to turn a villager into an outcast, he kind of gives himself away, but there's also the chance that he makes the drunk or a doppelganger or something that's disguised. So if that outcast is disguised, you have to figure out who that outcast is first, and then look at the two characters beside it. And even then, there's a chance that he's not even next to that outcast, he's next to the other one. So you have to figure out who he's sitting next to first, who got created by the Chancellor, and then finally be able to take him down. Or if you're me, you just figure out who's lying and just kill them and hope. Alright, I think that's enough for the useful most of the time, so we're gonna move over to our next tier. Situational. The baker is not architect. You leave me alone. Don't you come over here. The baker is a situational because on one hand you want to have them in a village to be able to start confirming villagers, but they take away your information. And I've already explained how it's like information is important in this game. No information is worse than having a lot of information. And then having a lot of information is worse than having targeted information. So by having the baker in a village, you're able to start confirming good villagers, but you lose information to figure out who the evil is. And if you're unlucky, the baker can be 1. You can flip over 2, find the next baker, find 3, open up the next baker, flip over the 4th baker, 5th baker, 6th baker, 7th baker, and then all of a sudden your entire village is just bakers. And I swear that evils, like if you have enough bakers or a baker in the village, I feel like evils are more likely to copy and become like a baker and lie. Or if there is too many bakers, it gives away who's the evil because they're the only one not claiming baker. Which can be really funny. Alright, we're gonna next up. And after all of that, we're gonna go over to the Jester. The Jester is similar to where is she? Empress? There she is, right up there. The Jester is very similar to Empress but the Jester is 3 targeted characters and learning how many of them are evil. So they actually combo with the Empress to confirm them, because if there's one evil in the Empress vision, you know that the Jester is also on the team of the Empress, and that there is actually an evil in the Empress's thing. But if you're looking at characters where it's like, oh, you're trying to figure out who's evil, and you're selecting like 3 characters, and the Jester tells you that there's one evil, all of a sudden you're having to figure out, okay, who is the evil here? And it's just not really useful in the same point of view of like the Empress. The Empress, it has like somewhat targeted information, but the Jester having targeted information does not actually help them in most situations, which is why they're in situational tier. Alright, going up. The Lover. The Lover is also in situational because for them to use their ability, they have to be next to the evil. And there's some evils like Poisoner, Puppeteer, and like some of them that just do corruption. Like Puka, Poisoner, Plague Doctor can really mess with the lover. And then it's like, if the lover the lover essentially has to be sitting right next to the evil to be able to actually use their ability. And if they're not, then they're just sitting there doing nothing. Like, you would want to have any other villager instead of the lover if they're not sitting next to the evil. And if it's not obvious, I feel like the lover is like while there is some situations where they can be good, there's other times where it's like you want any other villager. Okay. Let's go over to the next character. The next character is going to be our Oracle. Oracle? Like, sometimes you're wanting to find like a specific minion or demon because it's like, it's a Lilith village. You want to find Lilith before she kills 2 units. You don't want to really be looking for a minion, but there is times where it's like, where sometimes you're trying to find the witch to be able to see your last card, and you want to figure out between 2 characters who's the witch. Then sometimes you want to figure out who the shaman is, and then sometimes if the werewolf is in play, you want to see if they're claiming that there's a werewolf. Because if there's a werewolf and the shaman is looking at the werewolf, it tells you that there's a werewolf in the game, and that they are most likely good, because they're now seeing that there's a werewolf instead of just claiming that there's somewhere else. Alright. Next up is going to be the Scout. The Scout is effectively like, I'm thinking how to explain it, but essentially the Scout is telling you that there's like, you're trying to find like one evil is close to the other evil. But then there's other times where the Scout is telling you, the close, let's say the minion is 3 away from the closest evil. You're looking at the board, and if it's like a 10-person board, it's not really useful. The Scout is more useful in smaller villages, and loses their actual, like, it's like the Scout could be good, but if they're in a larger village, there's a higher chance of them being not good, because you're trying to figure out, like, if one is evil, and the Scout is claiming that the closest evil is 2 away, assuming that they're good, it confirms that there's 2 villagers that are good, and then they're pointing at 3 and 9. So you know that the 2 villagers up here are good. But then there's other times where the Scout is claiming, the closest evil is right next to the specific evil. So now it's like, crud. So now you're trying to look between 2 characters and not really giving any information on if the Scout is actually like confirming anyone or not. So it's like, on one hand, the Scout can confirm a lot of villagers. On the other hand, the Scout can't be doing much. Alright. And I think I've already said it multiple times, but I feel like the Witness, I feel like, is one of like the most situational characters, because there's some times where you get a Witness and there's just no one that was affected by an evil. Like, you can have Bombardier, Doppelganger, and a Rambler, and just like 2 minions, and it's just like the witness can't do anything because their entire ability focuses on, oh, which character is affected by an evil, and then claims there's no one affected by an evil if no one was affected, which becomes just like an issue of just like, if there's nothing happening in the village in relation to like evils doing anything, they aren't doing anything. But then other times they're being very useful when it's like, oh, this character is corrupted. Speaking of corruption, our next character is going to be our bard. The bard tells you how far they are from the closest evil. Or not closest evil, closest character that's corrupted. I was thinking of the hunter, and we'll get to him later. But the bard is... Sorry about that, had to yawn. But the bard is effectively, it tells you which character is corrupted, or who the closest corruption is. So sometimes it's just like, you're trying to figure out who's corrupted, and the bard is useful. But then obviously there's some villages where there just isn't any corruption, and the bard loses their ability to do anything. And they're essentially the same thing as the witness, but the bard is telling you how far away they are, and the witness is just telling you who was affected by it. So it becomes like just, they are essentially the same character in the context of like, oh, who's corrupted. Alright. I think that's enough. We're going to be talking about the lycanthrope. The lycanthrope on its own is useful is situational, because it's like, on one hand, the lycanthrope can be on the village side and telling the truth to essentially help the player find the evils. But then there's also, but if they're not the first four revealed, the werewolf shows up and joins the evil team. And I honestly couldn't figure out if the lycanthrope was for the evil team or for the good team. So I put them in situational, because it's just like, it depends on when they get flipped over, effectively. Because if they get flipped over early, they're on the good team. If they get flipped over later, they're on the evil team. So I couldn't determine if it's like, do I put them on the good team, or do I put them on the bad team, or do I just put them on like a neutral team? And I couldn't figure it out. Alright, and with that, we are going to go down to our not useful most of the time tier. And we're going to start off this tier with, where is he? There he is, the architect. This guy, I feel like is almost not useful at all, because all he does is tells you which side is more evil. But to essentially prove that this guy's lying or telling the truth, you have to first figure out who all is evil. Figure out, is this side more evil than the other side? You gotta count evils, you gotta figure out which side is more evil. And then you look over to him if he's telling the truth, and then it's just like, he doesn't help you, effectively. Like, he helps you in the context that he tells you which side is more evil, in case there's like a 50-50 and there's 2 evils already dead and you have to find a third one. But then other times it's like, oh, both sides are equally evil. You jerk. How are they both evil? Like, you have to find out that there's a wretch on one side. Have to do all this to figure out if he's telling the truth. And then it's like, it's just not useful having to figure out which side is more evil, according to him. Because then it's like, if he's corrupted, then it's just then just throw everything out the window. He's not even useful at that point. Then there's like if the puppet exists, the puppeteer and the puppeteer is on one side, puts let's say the puppeteer is on like 4 and it's like a 9-person village. If the puppeteer puts the puppet on 5, then it's just like it just throws everything off. Okay, next up is the Dreamer. The Dreamer, after becoming like pick 2 characters, I feel like lost its usefulness. Like, because originally the Dreamer used to only be picking 1 character and telling you if they were evil or not. I don't fully remember, but but by picking 2 characters now, even if you pick a wretch, there's can't unsee that last dream. What the heck? But effectively, if the Dreamer can't, God, I'm looking at it here and it's just like wretch looks like a cabbage, and it's like, how do I focus on that? And then it's just like over here, wretch was a cabbage. What the heck? Alright, we're gonna close it. But effectively, now that the Dreamer is picking 2 characters instead of just 1, the Dreamer is not being useful, because it's just like, even if you pick the wretch to get like the special dialogue option of calling the wretch a cabbage, there's the chance of just like, oh, it chooses to pick the other character, and it's like like, let's say you're picking the Dreamer and the wretch to figure out if the wretch or confirm the Dreamer. The Dreamer can, even if you pick the wretch, can choose to say that they're talking about the Dreamer. Can choose to talk about the Dreamer and be like, oh, there's a Dreamer and a just whatever other role. And like, I just don't feel like that information becomes useful in any way. And the Hunter is very similar to the Scout in the context that the Hunter is telling you how far away they are from the nearest evil, and the Scout is telling you how close a specific evil is to another closest evil. So they're both, like, it could be argued that the Hunter deserves to go up to situational, but effectively the Hunter is, like, if the Hunter is right next, can be used to confirm a lot of villagers, or can be used to confirm no villagers, because if the Hunter is right next to the evil, it confirms that one of their neighbors is evil, but nothing else. But as soon as the Hunter goes up to like 2 away from the closest evil, you can confirm their 2 neighbors, and then check those 2 characters. So like if you're at 1 over here, you can confirm 10 and 2 are good, and then have to check between 9 and 3 to figure out which one of them is evil. So it's like they could be useful, and honestly, I feel like they deserve to actually be up in situational with the Scout. But I have them in not very useful because it's just like, sometimes they just like, you're just pointing at their neighbors and it's just not useful. Because it's like, oh, there's an evil next to you. Why not just say there's an evil next to you? Like, at that point, why not just be the lover? Alright, the Alchemist. The Alchemist is going to be our next character in the not useful most of the time, because the Alchemist relies on corruption. And in this game, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, at most 5 characters corrupted at one time, because the Puka does 3. So if there was more corruption in this game, the Alchemist would become more useful. But by essentially the Alchemist existing and only having a range of 2, there's a good chance that even if there is corruption in the village, there's a chance that they're not on the right side to be able to actually do the or heal the corruption. It's like the alchemist is too reliant on corruption to be near them to actually use their ability. So I just feel like they can't be useful. And the knitter, where's knitter? Knitter is the next up on the list, and the knitter is it's so situational, and I feel like it's even worse than the scout, which is very hard to beat, by the way. It's very hard to be worse than the scout and like some of these other characters. So the knitter being one of the worst characters, it's a impressive state. Like I feel like they're even worse than the architect, and the architect doesn't do much. But the knitter effectively tells you how many evils are next to each other. If you can see the problem here, if the evils are not sitting next to each other, the knitter is effectively useless and not doing anything. I don't feel like I want to explain any more outside of like, if one is evil, the knitter does tell you that 2 and 10 are good, but that would first require you to kill one, find out that they're evil, and then be able to use the knitter's ability to determine that there's no evil next to 1. And we're going to go over to the next character because I just don't feel like explaining the knitter as a choice because I feel like it's a little self-explanatory. But the wretch. The wretch is a evil minion where and honestly, the wretch does effectively work for the evil team, in my opinion, by being able to just like deflect information onto them instead. But if they are being targeted by, let's say, an empress or anything that tells you what if there's an evil, they effectively become like the evil team's worst nightmare, because now you're using them to figure out if who all is lying. And the wretch doesn't give any information, so there's no way for the wretch to be able to like give information to lead you away from the evils. They can effectively just be like, oh, I'm considered evil, and people are going to be looking at me claiming that I'm evil. Alright, next up. The Ba. The Ba is not useful most of the time because the ability to just hide one outcast in the deck effectively means like, oh, you're gonna probably find that outcast anyway, unless Lilith kills them. And even then, it's like, Lilith has a very low chance to actually target the character that is specifically the outcast being hidden. And then it's like when the Ba is dead, you just figure out who the outcast is anyway. So it's like, oh, it's not really useful. Prioritize hiding drunks and doppelgangers? Honestly, I did not know that. I did not know that they prioritize drunks and doppelgangers. But I feel like that just makes it a little worse, because now it's like you know which one they're gonna target first or prioritize. Because it's like if you have a doppelganger and drunk, it confirms that one confirms that there's a good character, and the drunk is good for just deflecting information. So on one hand it could be useful, but honestly I don't see how the Ba can be just like useful by hiding just one outcast. But if they were able to hide all of the outcasts from view, all of a sudden they shoot up to like the most like very useful. Which, because now it's like you don't know who the outcasts are until he's dead. Alright, now we're gonna move over to the puppet. Where's the puppet? The puppet is right here. The puppet is on the evil team, but tells the truth, which is a very complicated thing to do. Because it's like, if you're telling the truth, there's a chance that this puppet is giving away who is evil. So if they're pointing at the puppeteer right here, and they're like, oh, I'm one away from the closest evil, and the puppeteer is right here. You kill the puppeteer, find out that this guy's the puppet, kill him, and then it's just like, it's a very easy roll to essentially get yourself killed. Or get itself killed. And it gives you, like, honestly, if the puppet didn't tell the truth and, like, lied, I feel like the puppeteer would be a very much better character, but then that would make them effectively the poisoner. So it's like, the puppeteer in concept is good, but I feel like the puppet needs to be changed to be able to actually, like, fit with the minions and not just accidentally give away who all is evil. Okay, who is next? Next up is the shaman. Where are you, shaman? There you go. I didn't recognize the art for a second. But the shaman essentially creates two of the same villager, which essentially confirms that that villager is good if they're assuming that there's no doppelganger or drunk copying them. So, like, if you have two gem crafters and there's only two gem crafters, all of a sudden you know that those two gem crafters are good, able to confirm the two people that the gem crafters are pointing at. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, it's a domino effect of, oh, you figure out who is evil much faster than if the shaman did not create two villagers or a copy villager. Alright. Next up is the witch. Honestly, the only reason why the witch is actually down here and not useful most of the time is because sometimes the witch is like hiding a outcast at the final villager unrevealed, or final unrevealed villager is just like an outcast, so they're not giving any information anyway. And it's like, the witch's entire thing relies on, like, oh, you don't get to know what that last character is saying. Not being able to find out what one character is saying could be devastating, but in the other hand, it could be like, oh, it's just like an outcast that could actually be throwing you off instead. So so the witch could actually help you instead of actually not help you. It's a weird thing, and there's one more villager in our not useful tier, and it is going to be the enlightened. Where are you? The enlightened. Honestly, the enlightened, I feel like it is just not useful when it comes to, like, oh, which way is the closest evil. If it's pointing clockwise or counterclockwise, you first have to figure out, like, if you don't know which way that is, we don't judge. Or at least I don't judge, because it's like, I feel like when I was doing, like, this stuff in, like, 3rd grade, I couldn't figure, like, I forgot most of the time, like, oh, counterclockwise, clockwise. I would literally have to, like, look at the clock over there on the wall, figure out which side it's going, and then I would be able to figure out, oh, which way am I looking? But the fact that they have arrows makes it a little better. But I just feel like knowing which way the closest evil is just becomes a worse version, or honestly, it could actually be a better version than the hunter, now that I'm thinking about it. But hunter is also in the not useful tier, so it doesn't matter. And the scout could be, and like, so these three are kind of similar: enlightened, hunter, and scout. Yeah. Alright, we're gonna go into our bottom tier of never useful. Confessor. Just, first one, Confessor. Confessor is never useful because, on one hand, they are, like, if they are good, they are just saying, I am good. Gives you a free character that's confirmed. Nothing else. And if they're evil, they tell you that they're dizzy. So effectively, they are the most simple character, but by being that, they aren't doing much to actually help you or do much. The knight is our next character here, and the knight effectively is just if I'm good, I can't die. They are effectively a self-confirm role and nothing else. They are so similar to the Confessor in the context of, if the Confessor is good, they're just saying, I'm good. The Knight is good. You just stab them, figure out they're good, and then move on. And that's it. Maybe be able to use them for, like, other information, like if Gem Crafter is pointing at them, but on their own, assuming that it's just the Knight, they are not good, or not useful. The Bombardier, I personally never even touch the Bombardier. If I see the Bombardier and I know that there's a Bombardier in the village, I just leave them alone. I just sit down at whatever number they are, and I just don't even look at them. I just don't even consider them, because they are just like, on one hand, they are probably the most useful, because it's like, all of their information is just like, oh, if you kill me, I'm gonna blow up the town. And honestly, it could be situational, because but there's really no team that it's a part of. It's effectively on the team of, if you kill me, I'm gonna kill you. And I guess that would mean they're technically evil, so they can, but then if they're technically evil, it makes it so that there's just no information that they're giving to be able to actually use their ability. Next up is going to be the Rambler. The Rambler on their own, without affecting the villagers next to them, is like never useful. And honestly, and being on a team where it's just like they're on the outcast team, and they essentially make it so whichever team they're on is the one that's telling them to be quiet. And assuming that they're on the good team, they're essentially making it so two good villagers are not giving information just because of them standing there. And that's why they're in the never useful tier, because they're just like, oh, they ruin it. They make it so two villagers aren't telling information, which could be devastating if they are like two village investigatives. And we're approaching our final two characters, and the final two characters I have not talked about are the Minion and Twin Minion. They are effectively the exact same character, and they have no ability. They straight up have no ability. Why are they useful? Why are they useful to the enemy team? I don't see it. To the villager team, why are they, or the, not villager team, the Minion and Demon team. They have no ability. There's nothing. Wait, they're a male? What the heck? He lies for the cause, also for fun. Claims she's the smarter twin. The other says the same. Yeah. It's like they don't have an ability. Their only use is just to essentially just lie and be like the basic minion. So by being that, they are just not useful for the enemy, for the evil team. And with that, I have gone through and explained most of my tier list from the other day, about at the time of recording 18 hours ago, where I ranked on usefulness. Thank you all for watching. I have been Narco Plays, and I will see you all in the next video.